I've always been confused by the really delicate nature some people treat books with. They barely open them, they crane their eyes just to read the pages because they're afraid of breaking the spine or bending a page. These are the people who look at the way I read books in absolute horror. I think we're almost starting to get into this strange stage where we almost care more about the book themselves than what's written on it. And that actually concerns me as an author. Alys, like many other books that came before it by authors who are far more talented than I, is an idea that I put forth to the world to consume and make their own ideas about. I fully expect people to thumb through the margins and write little notes, like to help it inspire them as well. And I understand not everyone is going to read a book like that, and that's fine. But remember what the actual preciousness of that book is not in fact the little tiny pieces of wood that were pressed together. It's the ideas that were written on them. I remember a year or so ago, there was a craft project that basically took apart the insides of a book. And what really disturbed me was the response to that. The absolute lash out hate and loathing. And here's the thing, it's not really about what you think someone should get out of a novel. As much as I hate to admit this, authorial intent doesn't really matter in the long run. It's about what you get out of it. And what you get out of it is not going to be the same thing as your neighbor or your best friend, and that is fine. I feel like making an impression in general is a success, regardless how small it may seem. There is such amazing thoughts and ideas in just one tiny little book. Which, by the way, if you haven't checked out Nika Harper's Echoes of Old Souls, which just now recently graced my bookshelf, you should definitely give it a look. This book, this fantastic, awesome, brilliant little book, is eventually going to be filled with a lot of pen markings. Why? Because I know Nika's writing and I know it is absolutely inspiring. And this book is eventually going to be filled with ideas and notes for something I'm going to create. And honestly, that makes this worth far more to me than had I just barely touched it, had I tried to keep it open like this so that I didn't make this crease in the cover. I am actually really proud of how loved the books that have remained on my bookshelf look. And I'm not saying this to shame anyone who reads like this, though that must be super uncomfortable and I'm not sure how you manage to find the activity that enjoyable with that awkward position, but that's still okay. At the same time, please stop getting elitist with the people who dog-ear their pages, who write in the margins. If it's their book, that's their right. I mean, obviously you shouldn't write in the margins of library books. When I would feel that inkling, post-it notes became my best friends. Also, I would want to keep the book if I had written a bunch of notes in it. But I think that's really what it boils down to for me, is books are something different for everyone. Much like eating a Reese's, there is no wrong way to read one or devour one. That didn't quite work, but I'm going with it. So what I would like to know from you guys today is 1, how do you read a book? 2, what is probably the oldest book on your bookshelf? And by that I don't mean oldest publication, like the book you've had the longest. I know some people really don't want to switch over to digital. I personally have slowly made that transition because I've been very nomadic, and the only physical books I've held onto are ones that have a very severe sentimental connection to me, or ones I've written in and they've got other book notes. And I've gotten to a point where I don't lend out physical books anymore because the ones I have are full of notes, mostly for my writing thing, and I have to go back and reference them. But I think the oldest book I have on my shelf, the one I've had the longest, is probably a copy of Ella Enchanted that I had 6th grade, I want to say. I've had that since 6th grade. And one of the really important things about that book, and it has very little written in it, but I've read it over and over and over again, and the very important thing about that book is that that is definitely by far the book that got me extremely interested in adaptations. If you've never read it, I'm not going to spoil it for you. It had a horrible movie that absolutely had like nothing to do with the book, and I'm not even exaggerating. It's not even remotely similar. I think the very bare bone premise is somewhat the same, and that's about it. It's like the scriptwriters went like, what is it? What are the characters' names? Cool. And then they just ran with it. It's truly terrible. And I can't even look at it like a separate thing. It's just a bad movie. Regardless, that's sort of my shtick for today. I hope you guys have an awesome Wednesday. It's Wednesday already. Gosh. I've got some work to do. Bye.